Welcome to another episode of the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
This is episode 6.2.
The second in the dreaded D-Word series.
Which is, of course, centered around demons.
In this episode, we talked to Carl Johnson and James Annitto, who together formed a team called Duo Daemonology.
They'll be giving talks and lectures, and they are, do I dare say it?
Funny as hell.
And yet they're super informative. These guys have so much information. So you might have caught our other interview with Carl and James on Bigfoot and the Bunny, our live show on United Public Radio. That went over really good. We had so much fun talking to them, so we decided we wanted to do a podcast, and they agreed, and we're very thankful for that. And this one was a little bit more laid back. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear some ice and glasses, and you're going to hear some giggles, and, it was kind of a laid-back thing.
We had a great time.
I don't want to get into that. But, editing myself. But, it was really fun and still super informative.
They're very interesting and very knowledgeable.
I mean, these guys are the best, We're going to talk a little bit about their background, and then we'll get right to the interview.
Carl L. Johnson has been investigating reports of strange phenomena for the past 47 years. Beginning with his association with noted ghost hunting couple Ed and Lorraine Waring.
The original paranormal couple.
The real OGs.
As members of a team based at Rhode Island College, Carl and his identical twin brother Keith were called in to investigate the Perron family situation in Harrisville, Rhode Island during August and September of 1973. They were actually the people who alerted the Warrens to the situation.
40 years later, this inspired a motion picture titled The Conjuring, which we are sure that everyone is familiar with.
Both Carl and Keith were featured in the first and second seasons of the Sci-Fi Channel series Ghost Hunters, leaving the show to better pursue their own endeavors.
Carl has numerous other television credits, including the shows Paranormal State on A&E Network, The Haunted, and Finding Bigfoot, both on Animal Planet.
Most Terrifying Places in America on the Travel Channel, A Haunting on the Learning Channel, and most recently, Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel for the 2019 Halloween special.
Specializing as a demonologist, Carl continues his exploration of the preternatural through the research unit Panorama Paranormal, plus his website, Demonology Incorporated. He writes and lectures on related topics and is well-versed in arcane New England lore.
James Annitto is a demonologist and a deacon through the Old Catholic Church who has worked alongside many other specialists in this field.
James is also a paranormal investigator and researcher, as well as a member of Sanctuary Paranormal and the former founder of the Dominion Ministry.
He has been in the paranormal field since the early age of 15, investigating graveyards and legendary surroundings in New England such as Mercy Brown,
Rhode Island's most famous vampire,
Lad School, USS Salem, and Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
His knowledge of the paranormal came from reading many books in his early years, watching Unsolved Mysteries, Scariest Places on Earth, and then eventually Ghost Hunters, increasing his interest and knowledge of the field.
After being in the field for the last 15 years, James has gained a great deal of experience from working with many well-respected members of the paranormal field and has over 400 cases under his belt.
He has appeared on many radio and local television shows. James has also given scores of lectures at libraries and expos. James began a new level of his paranormal life when he began his studies in demonology and the ministry.
And there's something special about this particular podcast interview.
We captured 2 actual EVPs during the recording of it.
They aren't what you call Class A EVPs, but they are definitely something.
They are there whispering words, though Chris and I are not 100% sure what's being said.
So listen close and see if you can spot them.
At the end of the interview, we will play them back for you and let you know the times that they occurred, so you can go back and play them in real time. My first question to you is, what is demonology to you?
Oh, to me, James and I will have similar answers to, for instance, that question, but we depart at a certain point. To me, to Carl, demonology is the systematic study of wicked spirits, their cultural traditions, their lore, origins of those beliefs. So I am an applied demonologist, as is James, meaning if people write to us, we will address their problems and concerns and questions. We may even go to a site. Basically, it's a study, and our mission through Duo Daemonology, and my mission through Duo Daemonology, is to legitimize that study, make it a scientific research, not just supernatural, not just speculative, not just believe what you read, something that was written 400 years ago. We're trying to bring it into the modern era and brush off the cobwebs. So demonology is a viable study. I think it has a place in our world today, and most people would not know that. Yeah, that's my perspective on demonology.
How about you, James?
Well, it's hard to beat the aspect where it is a study, and then of course the applied aspect of it, where we are the person that is the being that comes in and involves ourselves with that person, collecting data to try to supplement it to see if it is natural or preternatural. So as a demonologist, when we're doing that, we are looking at everything possible in the natural realm that it could be before we determine it to be preternatural. And I think that is what is important of what a demonologist is. A lot of people think we're an exorcist or something else, but we're there to determine it is natural, more prevalent, and than any possibility of it being the paranormal. Like my belief system, yes, I believe in God, but I also believe in 99% of the stuff that occurs in everyday life is natural, and the rest of it is paranormal, supernatural, preternatural. Yeah. So it's hard for me to say that everything I've dealt with is paranormal. No, it's not. So that's, to me, what a demonologist is. I'm that person that comes in as the mediator. So if a team that is investigating the location, a residential case, and they are coming across something they don't know what's going on, and they can't determine, they're inexperienced, maybe even if seasoned, they feel like there are signs of possibilities of evil or negativity. The illustrious signs that people also misconceive, and sometimes it is not evil, but it is over their head, and they seek somebody else to come on the boat with them and row the boat and try to help and determine what's going on with the client. And that is what the demonologist is, the mediator. With me, because I am a deacon with the United States Catholic Church, I am clergy. I am not an exorcist. I'm not a priest. I'm a deacon. I can assist, and I have assisted in that realm of being a Catholic clergy member. That is, of course, more recent than how long I have been part of the demonology field. But in the case of me being a demonologist now, it is for me to assess the case and then give it to my bishop or an exorcist if he is a priest, and it goes down a food chain. So if somebody in my realm of things, I know Carl does it in the same aspect.
He duos it.
He duos it.
It's the duos and don'ts of demonology.
But in that same token, though, is I have to go the extra step. When I'm dealing with somebody, if they are claiming possession, I have to get psychologists involved, physicians involved. It is something that is mandatory with the Catholic Church when you're dealing with somebody, especially if they're claiming something like that. So maybe other demonologists want to do that, but I know like Carl and other demonologists that I know, like Ralph Sarchi or John Zaffis or other people, Keith Johnson, they tend to do work with the medical field. But that is what a demonologist does. We work with those people. We work with all different kinds of specialists to kind of determine what's going on. And that, to me, is what a demonologist is, what demonology is. You know, I am also a theologian. You know, I study God. But a lot of people tend to forget theology is a science because it is a study of something that is possible. It is not against the principalities of life. We live by principles of life and science. That is how science is dictated. So if we go by the principles of life that we are determined by, especially if you look at metaphysics or evolution and stuff like that, a good book is The Metaphysics of Evolution by Father Chad Ripperger. It's a great book. But so in that tone, the study of God is applicable to science, and it's been a debate for a very long time. You know, St. Thomas Aquinas wrote the Summa, and it's a very, very authentic, scientific exploration of God and the possibilities of God. So, demonology comes from theology or angelology, and of course, hamartology, which is the study of sin, and all these other eschatology, all these different things. These things are sciences, and people don't understand it to be. So even though we are demonologists, and I come more at a religious aspect because I'm Catholic, I still look at it in a scientific aspect as well. And I believe most demonologists do. And then, of course, people that apply the demonology, the study of it, do that. And that's what, to me, demonology is and what I do with it.
Yeah. Scientific, of course, is equated with rationality, but it's really just observational, looking at the world, looking at our environment, you know, cataloging, documenting, trying to make some sense of it. That's what science is.
Okay.
You know,
But
and it need not be in opposition to demonology as we define it.
But and that's where we are, where people, maybe a normal investigator wouldn't look at those signs. We deal with those others. So we board other people to look at this individual going through this possession-like stage, especially because we are demonologists. We deal with demons more so in that equated aspect where we deal with demonic possession. So us as demonologists, we bring other specialists that aren't even paranormally involved,
Right.
where a regular paranormal investigator might not do so. So we get other specialists, psychologists, we get physicians, we get people that look at these individuals and document the possibilities of something happening naturally, but unnaturally to them.
Right.
Maybe they're being sick.
And I think that's
like
a better approach because you get more minds working on it. You get different perspective, different aspects.
That's science, though,
Yeah.
right? That's science, because science is having many different people see something occur, right? And that's how it becomes fact. If a million people see something happen, how is that not possible, right?
Then again, observational. And James was saying that we have to kind of shift gears if we're going out in the field. We're switching hats, so to speak, you know. We're doing our analysis beforehand and afterwards, but when we're on the scene, then we have to take a more subjective approach. Yep. You know, kind of put our intellects to the back and use intuition and try to blend that all together.
Yep.
Right, and intuition gets a little cloudy when we get into the scientific aspect, so we all know that it's
essential
part of what we do.
You have to be unbiased. You do.
You mentioned the need to appeal to like medical sciences, and that would be, psychiatry and that kind of thing to make sure the person you're dealing with is mentally stable. Am I wrong when saying that?
Definitely not. A lot of people. I've been saying this a lot because I've become more knowledgeable throughout the years. I wouldn't have said this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, but I learn, and people sometimes aren't willing to learn what is out there and seekable. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, performed exorcisms as psychotherapy on people. So it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So
one form or another.
So medicine has been around for a very long time, but so hasn't the ideologies of possession and demons. Religion and science almost come neck and neck for longevity of human civilization. So yeah, psychology is very important. So is it medicine and trying to understand the chemical imbalances with people and understanding, because dissociative identity disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar, a lot of these things can emulate possession.
And 500 years ago, this was all the categories he just cited were all demonic possession, because people were being taken over by another personality. What else could you do but attribute that to demon invasion?
Yeah, especially if you do not.
That would have been science at the time.
Yeah, that was their science at the time.
And guess what? That science is controlled by, though. It's actually, and I don't say this to not the Catholic Church. I am the United States Old Catholic Church, but it was also
not, because you're being recorded, dude.
But it was also dictated by the Catholic Church as well, though, a lot back then as well, with these ailments. It really truly was. They were these people were sought out by the Catholic Church, and a lot of these inquiries, even though it wasn't the Catholic Church, look at the Salem witch trials.
Yeah, that sounds suspicious, like
look at the Salem witch trials.
Oh yeah, hysteria, man. You can categorize that as mass hysteria.
But that was mass hysteria based upon also religion too, because
they did not call it that.
It was a testament.
Yeah, they called it spectral evidence. Then they did not call it, mass hysteria or hypnosis or psychopathia. Those terms didn't.
But it was a religious. It was a religious crusade, though. But it was land. It was land oriented. If you look at.
But now you're going back like more centuries.
But true. You see it though. You see that it goes back a very long time. It's not just.
It goes back a long time. Yeah.
And I believe the Vatican collected every book that ever was about it.
Oh yeah, I would love to get into their library. Ever was. Brush up on Latin, but I would love to get into there, and Greek. But the vast treasures and the repository of knowledge that is owned by the Vatican. You can only speculate, but they have the stuff there.
They do. They probably have things that are probably below the conception of reality in your mind.
That library book you lost in 4th grade, they probably have it at the Vatican. They
have copies.
They have ways
behind locked doors.
Yeah.
It's truly the Men in Black.
Oh, no one knows what goes on behind locked doors.
What would you guys say specifically is a demon? An actual, real demon? And I'm going to go back to Sumer and what it means now. And
ancient Sumer, the Sumerian cultures. Yes, well, that's... It's such a loaded question. It's the easiest and the most difficult, because you have to become subjective to answer that question, because you don't have not definite physical, empirical evidence. Demon is a wicked spirit. It's something intangible but presents itself. It's not physical, but it can do physical things. We think all demons are malevolent. If there are demons that do not resent the human race, then we don't know about them because they're not talking to us. Much of this, as James was touching on, much of it proceeds from our own minds. What we create, what we project, originates in our mind, and we understand it better if we make a projection of that. Okay, it's something exterior. It's a wicked spirit. Now we don't know where it started, but we kind of understand it. But a lot of this gestates in the human mind, and it actually takes on its own evanescent life, becomes real. But as far as the origins of the belief in the demons, yes, you're talking about the first cauldron of culture that we know of, ancient Sumer in the Mesopotamian region. They had their own system of deities and gods and devils. And the Hebrew faith, Judaism, actually springs from that, because the Hittites and the Hebrews, they weren't even called Hebrews then, they had traffic with what was happening in Mesopotamia. And that was actually the origin of the Judaic faith, which actually, of course, sprung Christianity, begat Christianity. So you've got Ahura Mazda, you've got the Syrian Babylonia cultures springing from that. Thank you. So they had the basic system of a god, a creator, and a devil. unique dichotomy extant at that time. And we're saying, I'm rounding it off and saying 3,500 to 4,000 years ago. And you've got influence, you've got stuff starting to brew that's going to become Judaism. That's going to become Assyro-Babylonian. But it's all starting in this cradle, this cauldron of civilization. I mean, there were civilizations before, but they're very spurious and vague. But these we know more about because we've been able to decipher their alphabet and their writings. So they believed in the beings that came down from the sky, the Watchers. Well, actually, they weren't called Watchers. That gets a little later. And then you get into the Nephilim, which is
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah. And that's just a little late. When I say little, I mean like within 2 millennia. You have the Hebrew faith and the Hebrew culture. But it's all starting here from what we know. And then when this is going on for a while, these mercantile bands are traveling and they have commerce and interchange with what's happening in Sumer. And they start assimilating their beliefs, the high God figure and the lower regions, the devils, and you got to have something to blame pestilence and famines on. How could God allow this? So we have these devils. It's almost like the sun and the moon beliefs, like sun worshippers, and the moon subjugates the sun at night. Then you have the Hebrews. They weren't even called that at the time. These band of mercantile travelers, they have their faith, and they start to worship the god El.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another early devil called Ahiman, but you'll notice linguistically there are similarities in these names and all that. But the Hebrews began by worshiping the god El.
Right, now we're going back to like the Annunaki.
Yeah. The Annunaki, that's the word. That means like, those who came from the sky.
The sky, right?
Yeah. Now, why don't they just believe in the sun god or this celestial being that watches over and governs the world? But then they have this now by our perspective, mythology, then belief that these beings, the Anunnaki, are coming down from the stars. And actually, that's what it means. Come from the stars. Those who came from the stars. That's kind of weird that's going on. Why are you making her laugh? What can you do?
No.
You know how much editing they're going to have to do?
No, they're not. No, sorry. I love this topic. I love this topic. Sorry.
You know what's going to happen? You're going to say something, and I'm going to be having my sip. I'm going to go.
So sorry.
The screen. It's happened before. Okay. Yes. But this is deep stuff we're talking about. We're talking about the origins of religious faith.
Oh, right, exactly. Very specifically a demon.
And as long as there have been people, there has been religion or faith. Let's say I'm encapsulating its nomenclature. I'm calling it religion. And as long as there has been religious belief, there has been belief in wicked spirits. The two are concurrent, and they go hand in hand. So these Anunnaki, and I'm glad you brought up that word because it started a whole new subtopic with us. But they are gods that come from the sky, not the God. They are gods that come from the sky. And, of course, then the Hebrews are assimilating this culture. And then we have books in the Bible, which later in the Council of Nicaea were expunged from the Bible. They became the Apocrypha. And you've got, like, the Book of Enoch. Right. That just didn't jive with the rest of the books. So that was expunged from the Bible, eschewed from the Bible, from Scripture. It was considered not legitimate, but it still exists as the Apocrypha. And, the reason that was not included in the canonic Bible was because in the Book of Enoch, supposedly written by Enoch, what was he to Noah? Wasn't he something like Noah's grandson? Right. I think so. And he's talking about the wheel in the sky and these celestial craft that come down. Why does God need a craft? Why does God go from one place to another? The traversing of physical space.
When He's life itself. Yeah.
And in that book is a very detailed and cogent description of what really seems like a spacecraft that beings proceed from and go back into. They need a craft to get around.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just fascinating because you wonder what reality is behind the faith or behind the myth. So if you want to go run with that for a while.
Definitely.
'Cause you've been waiting to. You've been chomping at the bit as soon as we're talking about these
I'm gonna.
beings.
Well, no, it's not just the space beam. Though. I want to come from a different perspective, and for the people that will listen to the show, of course, is that demons are necessarily, of course, a conception of evil in Christianity, and what I'm about to say does not, of course, take me away from my belief in God and what God
have
is
to
to
make a
me.
disclaimer from time to time.
But-
you're just expounding on this theme.
But the thing is, you approached it through the Middle Eastern region
Yes.
of religion, of the three major religions, of course, where
Judaism, Muslim, and Christianity.
the three major religions.
In Occidental or Western, well,
Islam,
Middle
of
Eastern
course,
custom,
What?
but now it's Occidental. Now it's our culture here.
Yeah.
For the
But
most part.
in that same token, though, and you touched a little bit upon it, but what demons are in the necessarily, if you look at Sumerian demons or Sumerian entities and deities and all these things like that, demons are a collective of all these deities from multi-beliefs that don't a testament to what God is, and they, of course, are not God, and of course, these are these deities that are, of course, some false prophets kind of thing. But in reality, though, demons more so. If you look at the New Testament, which was translated from Greek, right?
Yeah.
It's instead of Hebrew of the Old Testament. If you look at Greek influences of the New Testament, if you look at the etymology of the word daemon, daemons come from Greek mythology, which were watchers or seers that were overseers of the people and would report back to the gods on Mount Olympus and say, these humans are doing this. They were basically watchers, and basically that's what daemons were in Greek mythology.
Monitoring the human race.
They were monitoring the human race.
Like we were important enough to watch and monitor.
So in a way, they were not benevolent or malevolent. They were neutral. But in that
they were more like truant officers, to the gods or to God, but they weren't intrinsically malevolent, not trying to destroy the human race, but kind of keeping us in check before we destroyed each other.
But the true definition of it is a spirit in some token. If you look up what daemon is, Daimon, and there's also Daemon. But in that same token, though, is if you look at the influence of the Greek mythology in the New Testament, you see that. Because if you look at the Old Testament, there are ever rarely notices of the word demon or anything. It is a serpent. There are some notes of evil. But until the New Testament comes, that is when you start hearing more about demons and, of course, expulsions of deliverances by Jesus. And you hear about this stuff. And, of course, there's the reasons for that. But you can also see the influence of that culture, of Greek culture. And people tend to forget Jesus spoke Greek. That was the primary language back then in that area.
Yeah, his native language was Aramaic, but he would have to have known Hebrew, Aramaic, Hebrew, and he would have to know Greek. He was expected because that was a melting pot, in Jerusalem where he was, and many people were Greek speaking, and he had to preach to them.
But you see them in the influences of the Greek mythology within Christianity. Of course,
you do see some influence. You see some parallels.
And of course, demons are one of those parallels, because if you think about what angels are, they are watchers, right? People forget this. Even though there are many subclasses and they're different, angels are not just one being. There are many different beings of angels. And of course, if they fall, there are many different fallen angels. Of course, we custom the devils or demons. So in that theory, of course, that they are watchers, and in that same influence, even though demons are negative, and angels are positive, and angelology and demonology is the study of wicked spirits, and angelology is the study of
It's like taking a mirror and angling it in different angles, different perspectives. You got the angelologist and the demonologist, but to give a legitimate study, you kind of have to be both. You have to know something about angelology if you're a demonologist.
Because they are almost the same and same
Yeah.
token, the same thing. But where I want to say, and this is where my disclaimer was at the beginning, is a lot of these influences aren't just from Greek mythology. And one of the things people tend to forget to look at is there are diagrams of throughout the years of religion, right? What religion came first.
Maybe like a chart.
A chart.
Of their
It's
origins.
more like a tree. It's like a branch, and there's many branches of it. But many people tend to forget the oldest religion in modern civilization to this day is Hinduism. Predates Christianity. It predates Judaism. It predates Islam. All three of them together. It predates all three of them together. So you got to remember, you know where the root of exorcisms came from? Was from Hinduistic culture, because they had the fervor, fervor. I can't think of it's Kulai. I don't want to mispronounce it, but the fervor. There's a dagger, and what they would do, the monks would use the dagger to suck up the entity.
And often it was
possessed.
the fervor was or fervor, however you pronounce, was it was usually a dagger or knife, like a thame, and it would have a figure carved in it, like a demonic-looking figure.
Like an SMA.
Give it its personality, give it its soul.
Yep.
Yeah, a thame, but it's similar to the witches, the Wicca thame.
But Hinduism came way before witchcraft, though. And
well, I've heard witches say that that's the oldest religion.
What, Hinduism?
The first one. Whereas
a lot of religion got kind of pigeonholed into being pagan, right? So we had all these different religions out there that later became titled as pagan, where they kind of have their own thing. Like we were watching a documentary on Orkney Islands earlier today, for instance. And they had their own thing, and they were building these kind of stone hobbit-like structures.
These stones, like Callanish, for instance. You got all these stone things. Now, some of them are, of course, astronomical alignments of stones, like
Stonehenge,
the celestial movements.
Go back
Some
to
people were structures, where huts or worship centers or village. Others are just lines of stone, and nobody knows what purpose they serve, like in Callanish, and of course the most classic example, Stonehenge in Britain. Why are they there? You can only kind of guess. I mean, there are alignments with Stonehenge. You can see that they were indicating the stars, but there were these standing stones that just nobody knows their purpose. You can speculate. Were they for worship? They don't look like they were keeping in livestock. They're just sitting there, almost like megaliths, like these. They look like beings.
They do.
What do they represent? And the knowledge of them is so remote, it's virtually non-existent now. Oral tradition has vanished from them, so we don't really know why they're there.
And it's conspiracy. I think that's the conundrums of unsolved mysteries and the paranormal, because
I guess part of my question would be I know a lot of times, later religions demonize some of the gods that were not necessarily negative in those religions and those people. I mean, you talk about the Mesopotamians and that kind of stuff. They later became demons, and demons could be an explanation for some of the negative things that people did back then.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from where they tend to say the demonization of other beliefs, deities, and entities come to the fact that maybe they were conceived of the fallen, because you got to remember a lot of angels and a lot of fallen demon names are from other cultures.
Oh yeah,
people tend to forget that they've incorporated other belief systems. I was talking about Hinduism, the concepts of Christianity and Judaism and Islam contain a lot from Hinduism. The light and the good and the bad, the dark, the yin and the yang. So people tend to forget a lot. Those are 10,000-year-old beliefs,
and we're still aware of them now. They're incorporated into our culture.
10,000-year-old beliefs.
10,000 years is so long. That's the very beginning.
12,000. It's balance.
Hinduism is noted, and people don't know, and people, and these are things that you can look up, like animism. Animism is the very first religion or ideologies of a belief system, because animism was concept. Basic animism is the concept of everything's energy, right? Yeah. That's what animism is.
Animism is the core.
Energy.
Animus is now Latin, it means the heart, or can also be applied to the center. Mm-hmm. But originally it connoted energy, vital energy.
If everything's energy, everything's center. It's the same. It's the same thing, because if you look at Hinduism, which Hinduism comes from animism more so than most other religions do, even though there are branches, look at the chakra points. Those are centers, and everything branches from those.
You must read a lot.
I just love religion. People don't realize there's like 4,500 religions, beliefs out there, and people aren't willing to learn these things. Like I don't even want to talk about African mythologies. Africani?
You better not.
Oh God, no. You think all that other stuff's crazy, but
we're rabbit trailing that.
Africani is like they have their own demons though. Like you can,
Again, the system of demons.
They do.
But back around to ask the what is specifically a demon? Is it a negative thing necessarily, or is it, some other type of entity?
Well, I use the word demon. Sorry to steal the thing from you.
No, go ahead. You give me your interpretation. It might differ from mine.
But I use the word demon because it's a central idea for most people. But like Hinduism's head is auras. The Jews have divics. Islams have jinns, but jinns are also good or bad. They're elementals.
Right.
So there's all these different religions have their own interpretation of name, but a lot of the characteristics and a lot of this, like what their intentions are the same. But people forget early Judaism had golems.
I was going to mention golem. I didn't think you knew what that was. He knows what a golem is. He knows.
But still though, but other religions have ideas of an evil, and
I don't think you can get away from it. I think that is intrinsic to all faith, that you have to have your above and your below spirits.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to below.
Your celestial and your nether.
And I think demons are attacked from things that are many different things. Like I said, if demons are in fact fallen angels, there are many different fallen angels, many different species, or whatever you want to call fallen angels, because they are pure spirit entities. People think demons have a physical body, but angels never had a physical body. It is pretty much set out there that they are pure spirit forms. So if they are pure spirit forms, that means they never had a physical body. So that means if demons were fallen angels or are fallen angels, that means that they are pure spirit form too. So, we don't, of course, we can only really know on a humanoid standpoint, because that's what us humans do.
Anthropomorphic viewpoints. We identify with things that have arms and legs and a torso and a head.
Right.
We don't understand much else. It's very hard to grasp the concept of something that's pure energy but has a mind and is a being. It may be
perhaps was never human.
Yeah, of a being.
Yeah. So and that comes on the same token, as a demonologist too, we deal with ufology. I worked with the case with MUFON, because they brought me in originally as a possession case, but I was like, this is not something that I believe is possession or anything like that. And I gave it over to MUFON. So but we still look at aliens as humanoid-based species as well. But if you look at what was the movie we were talking about, I forget the name. I always forget the name. But they were pure. They were spirit form aliens, though. They took over, possessed you, but they didn't have a physical body. Was it the Fourth Kind movie?
Are you talking about Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind?
Fifth Kind, but they were.
No, actually, that was Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind.
Fourth Kind, but they possessed the person.
Sequel, yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys know what I'm talking about, though?
Yes.
Oh, that was a scary.
Well, they didn't have a physical body,
But what was coming in the room and speaking in ancient Sumerian? What was doing that? They had to come into the room.
I'm not saying if demons did exist. I'm not saying that aliens don't exist. And if aliens existed, of course, they are maybe as old as demons.
Yeah,
demons.
They don't seem
demons
subject to
are
time
angels.
like we are.
If angels are really a part of God's
They're not
core,
temporal beings.
and God created all, right? Angels have been around for a very long time. They've even been around predating before even aliens because they were a part of God's first creation, right? So that means that means they even predate aliens in technicality if God is the creator of all, right?
This is very speculative now.
But it's not speculative. If God created all in concept, and you could say,
if you
could say
confine it to that belief system, yes.
You could say, okay, Judaism.
We'll handle this. Don't worry about it.
Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all believe in God, right?
Yes.
They all believe in God.
And they revere Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham originally became Abraham as the father of their faith.
Hinduism believe in Supreme God. God is still the title of their God, Supreme God. Hinduism, Supreme God. Right? So, still, it's part of every belief.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the aliens go way back. Oh, boy, if I ever am abducted, I have so many questions.
I know, but...
No guarantee they're going to tell me the truth. I don't think my human pea brain can wrap itself around what their answers would be. But what are you guys? Are you immortal? How come there are spacecraft visiting the Earth 500 years ago, and they appear in Renaissance paintings? They must go back further than that. I mean, how long?
But they still would know old language if it wasn't.
We're a pretty bitching race, but I just don't think we're so interesting that you can't figure out the human race.
Yeah.
If they've been observing us for millennia, what else do you need to know about us? What motivates us? What drives us? You've got the chimpanzees pretty figured out, so I think they should know about us.
Well, do we really know? Because you got to remember.
I think I know chimps pretty well.
Well, we got to remember.
I don't think there's anything to learn.
Well, we got to remember we found a species of gorilla only 100 years ago, right?
That's
the
right.
mountain gorilla was
So how well do we really know monkeys and chimpanzees and gorillas? If
I don't know them personally. No, I don't.
Still, though, in the same token, though, do we really know? So.
We don't know what goes on in their mind. We don't have the chimp experience.
I do believe aliens have probably visited Earth, but do I believe a lot of things that people believe in, like the why Stonehenge exists, are for aliens? No, I just think it is the concept of they didn't have compasses back then. That was their ability of compasses back then because that's their mind. You've ever heard of the Baghdad Battery? You think that was created by aliens?
Yeah.
No, it was created to create
I think
power.
knowledge evolves and then
Maybe it powered the probe.
Then it's forgotten. Knowledge becomes forgotten.
What is it?
What?
I said maybe it powered the probe. They haven't explored.
Maybe that was an ancient probe, yeah.
But still, people take it and always want to jump to the unnatural because in reality for most humans, aliens are natural. It's not conceivable. It's not possible, even though it is much natural because out of everything that exists in this universe, you think we really are truly the only thing that lives, not looks like us, but lives. I think it's unconceivable.
Well, you can speculate all you want about this.
No, well, we have found specimens, and that is
Speculum? You found them?
Specimen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Specimens of what, man?
I was looking for those.
What have you? You lost yours. Yeah.
Son of a gun!
Yeah.
Son of a gun!
You're the one who said probe. No, you said probe.
I said nothing about probes.
You're talking about the Baghdad Battery. He turned that into a probe.
Probes are bad memories for me.
Yeah.
Things have been vibrating for centuries, apparently.
Oh. Okay, yeah. You're not talking about artifact. You're talking about implement.
What's in the bedroom drawer?
Now we know something. Boy, the information is on your show. We know each other so much better.
Maybe there's more than one way to conjure a demon. I don't know. That's why I got you guys on.
Yes. Pulling it out of another reality is what you're doing.
Yeah.
James, I wanted to ask you a question about the MUFON case.
Yes.
How did you feel? Like, why did you give it to MUFON? Did you feel it wasn't a demonic spirit? You thought it was an alien?
This is interesting to me because I don't know his story on this.
Well, all I could say was in Massachusetts, and I was brought on because this person was losing time. Their personality changed. They were, of course, acting different, of course, due to their personality, but they just wanted to sleep all the time. It just felt like they were also becoming anti-religious. Like they weren't practicing, they weren't going to church. Like they were very religious. They would go to church, and they stopped going to church. So they taken, of course, all these signs. And, you know, that, oh my God.
Which you would normally equate with some demonic oppression leading to possession.
And of course they dabbled in not in the cult and so to say, but they dabbled in paranormal. And of course within that,
so you got all the formula for demonic possession.
Yeah, they have all the formula, the natural things. People would jump to the conclusion of that it's a ghost, an attachment, or you know, it's a demonic entity. And you know, of course, I get called in because that was the best thing they could do because they're bringing somebody else in to look at it. And a fresh mind. Their minds they weren't understanding. They weren't collecting any data, but they felt like this person wasn't lying. Like their personality changes. Like they interviewed this person. Like, what's going on? You know, like how they've just appeared in certain locations. Or would just wake up randomly. They would do something they wouldn't be doing it anymore or something like that. So like just natural things that you jump to the conclusion of demon. So, but they felt like this person wasn't lying, so they decided to reach out to me. And I came in, and I was probably on that case almost for a year before I ever got MUFON involved because, you know, I did not know what was going on myself. You know, I didn't feel like this person was lying, of course, as myself, but I also didn't really know if this person was being influenced because, you know, sometimes demons aren't theatrical as you believe them to be. They tend to be more manipulative, and sometimes they do linger a lot longer than they do jump out sometimes. So sometimes they maybe not make an appearance when somebody's there.
And sometimes they don't give up so easily.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe, okay, nothing's happening. Like I wasn't collecting anything either. There was nothing out of the norm. But just listen to some of the details, like what was happening, and like he would have kind of like flashbacks or dreams of seeing something, but it wasn't the normal formula of like what people see with demons or something evil. It didn't seem like it was evil in characteristics. It just seemed like there was a presence. But like I said,
does it sound like an abduction or?
Yeah.
Why did MUFON?
Did well, I didn't jump to that conclusion. You know, I like aliens and I like ufology and of course like cryptids and stuff like that. But I also don't do it all the time because ufology is a very expensive habit. It is. It's more expensive more than ghost or Bigfoot. It is very expensive to do ufology stuff.
Yes, that is. You need some equipment.
We do. That. So I don't really dabble in it. I know the basis, but it did sound like abduction later on. But I was trying to unravel, is this a demon first? Because that's my background.
Right.
And I go through many steps. Sometimes I've been on cases for years, helping a client, even with a non-demonic case, just a negative spirit. You know, I didn't know how long I'd be dealing with this person until I could figure out what their affliction was, what they were dealing with. But I didn't feel like they were crazy. I didn't feel like they hit a slump in their life. Like they had everything going for them in their life. You know, they weren't in a bad. Their relationship wasn't in the hole. Nothing bad was happening to this person. But I eventually just said, all right, what can I do? And I eventually reached out to somebody that knew somebody connected to MUFON, and they got them involved. But the one thing is most people, if you deal with MUFON, once they take the case over, you pretty much, if you're not part of MUFON, you're not part of that case anymore. So I never heard anything more about it. I never reached out. I thought at that point it was over my head. And I felt like if they needed me and they didn't feel like it was something that they couldn't handle or document, then they could call me back. But I never heard anything back. But I eventually got them involved because I didn't believe it was a spirit. I didn't believe it was a demon. I didn't believe it was some sort of deity. I didn't believe anything spiritual on the spiritual realm of things.
But it had to have a label. It had to have some kind of name.
I feel like that person. I felt like that person was being abducted. To be truth and honest with you and say it out, I think that person was being abducted. I believe that person was being experiencing something out of this earth, not celestial, but out of this earth, extraterrestrial.
Exactly. Like you mentioned, Carly, we almost have to, as humans, label things and give them these labels, and then they fall into certain stereotypes. But the stereotypes do actually cross over based on the event that occurs, right? So when we say, this could be a demon, this could be an alien, nobody wants to connect it necessarily on the Travel Channel, but they might, and maybe that'll be the next step. Who knows?
Could be. It's difficult to align demons and extraterrestrials. They seem like two different studies, actually.
Well,
we lack proper nomenclature in this. We don't have all the terms, but we need our labels because they're like rungs in a ladder. They're associative, and it's. I've tried to get away from labeling things. We don't know what they are, so let's not give it a name. But then a minute later, I'm saying the demon or the spirit, or even the entity. It's got to have some kind of name. We're dealing with imperfect and limited knowledge, so we apply these names, these words, these terms. So yeah, it's limited.
Yeah, but they're all interconnected in some way too. I think we use these words because it is easier to process and to understand and talk to somebody about something when you have something to formulate a sentence. Because we could use the word celestial and use the word extraterrestrial, but in a way, a demon could be extraterrestrial because technically a demon is beyond this earth.
Right.
It's beyond the realm of this earth, and it's also beyond this dimension. I think one of the fortitudes of pop culture, a lot of people tend to forget, where some similarity between alien and demon is the movie It. Pennywise is an interdimensional being, but he has a lot of the characteristics of a demon because he plays on your fears. And he uses that against you to feed on you, which a demon does.
Right. He's somewhat ethereal. Yeah. I mean, not necessarily always human-like.
But in a way, though, aliens are inhuman as well, right?
Yes.
So
that's right. They're not us. They're something different, something removed from us.
There are many different similarities. There are very many different similarities, but there are also a lot of differences too. And I think that's why, of course, we have to have these names, because if we've talked about this thing that took over somebody, that is abroad, it just.
We actually know more about aliens. We assume more about space aliens than we do about demons. And even the demons are.
I don't know about that. I think aliens
anthropomorphized.
I think aliens became more popular when the science fiction boom happened. Yeah. Demons have been around in ideology more than aliens have ever in concept. The science fiction is what made aliens the craze.
And you think of a Dibak or these Hebrew spirits. They're not bodied. They're amorphous. They're scared. Where are you going?
I gotta get a drink.
All right, we're gonna talk now.
And that kind of gets back to the original question I asked about what is the demon? Is it something that is negative necessarily, or has religion demonized previous religions? And certainly they're known for demonizing the pagan religions and their gods.
And this way, it's a matter of perspective. Yeah, a lot of these demons, they become inconvenient because they are believed in, they are worshipped, they are petitioned to intervene in human affairs and stop plagues and blights. And then another culture supersedes the past one, and suddenly you have like Apollo becomes Apollyon, and you've got they are subverted. The former gods are, to a degree, they are subverted. And if you look at a medieval, when I say medieval, I'm talking about probably early Renaissance. We're talking about 14th century. You've got this roster of demonic names, and by gum, they sound like Greek mythology. Greek mythology. And the basic difference, the essential difference between mythology and theology resides in one's degree of acceptance. So yesterday's myths are, or yesterday's gods are now the devils. They can become that. They're pagan. They're subverted into demons now. Yesterday's beliefs, yesterday's theology becomes today's mythology.
Archetypes.
Yeah, the archetypes are consistent.
Yeah, of course, and you look, of course, look at, like you said, the people of Greek mythology, Greek really, and of course, I said it earlier, but of course, you look at the incorporation of Catholicism. Look at the Roman mythology. Guess what that got stolen from?
Yeah.
So look at
The Saturnalia.
Look at Roman
Christmas.
Right.
Roman Catholic Church is the biggest church in the world, right? So Roman Catholic. Look at what a lot of their things came from.
But keep in mind, in the European theater, the immense power of the church in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this pivotal time of the Council of Nicaea in 325.
And Romans were pagan at one point.
And what's happening around that time? The Emperor Constantine or Constantinus, legalizes Christianity and makes it the straight.
Because of his mom.
You know about that, Helena, his mom.
Yeah.
And his mother, Helena, when she was 80 years old, she went on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. She comes back with a piece of the true cross.
Yeah,
they say she might have brought the Grail, the Christ cup back.
Oh, naturally get into the Knights Templar and.
Oh yes, let's talk about them. I love those guys.
Which is in some way this is all a form of demonology because.
Yeah, we're jumping around and talking about interesting topics, but it is incorporated into under the purview, the umbrella of demonology.
Yeah,
you have to be somewhat versed in these.
You have to. You
have to be versed in origins.
You do.
So, having answered your questions about what essentially a demon is thought to be, we can give the Occidental interpretation, the Western interpretation. They're evil spirits. They come from beings that were once angelic, celestial beings, and in the great conflagration and the great revolt in heaven, led by Lucifer, they sided with Lucifer. 1/3 of the heavenly host sided with Lucifer. They were overpowered. They were cast down into the nether regions. They became the demons, their leader being Lucifer, who became Satan. That is a very classic interpretation of what you could call Christian mythology, but it is embraced as truth, so it's not mythology, it's theology.
Yeah, and Christian theology is based on many other different mythologies.
Yeah.
And that's why you have the demon names from different other belief systems, because it incorporates a lot of what came before into its concept.
And as
we're
demons,
actually talking about fallen angels and names, when we say things like, say, the demons of the Goetia, are they fallen angels or are they something else?
They would be fallen angels because
the fallen angels with interesting origins.
Yes, they in some kind. Well, not everything of what Solomon was able to summon was technically demon. Of course, there's things that were quoted as demons.
You're talking about what they really might have been.
Really,
I've heard that Solomon constrained the demons to build his temple.
Well, he called a dragon. Well, a dragon's not a demon in reality, right? You wouldn't think of, of course, in Hinduism, a dragon is very evil in their ideologies, and also good as well. So it could be different, and how you look at it. So, I guess that's hard to look at it in that way, right?
Yeah. Well, I gave you a very classic interpretation of a demon that most people could identify with. If you ask what a demon is, you can define it in different ways. Demon is thought to be generally an evil spirit. You can debate their origins, but it's something insubstantial, can behave in a physical sense, physical propensities, but it's not in its essence physical.
Yeah, it's not a physical being.
It's a thought form. And we hear about the ones that bother us, the malevolent ones. I don't know if all demons are evil because I haven't met a good one. We don't know. They also seem very interested in the human race. I just don't know why we're so interesting. The extraterrestrials are so interested in us. They've been watching us for millennia. The demons are in an internal struggle, or
they hate us because
a temporal struggle, but they hate us and they're trying to destroy the human race, God's greatest creation. And all these, they seem interested in us.
Yeah, it brings up the nature of evil.
Yeah, but because we see ourselves in a humanocentric sense, we are the center of the universe. We are God's creation, God's greatest creation, in that we can understand good and evil.
Yeah.
So that's why we're very important and essential to the great scheme of the cosmos.
And everything that came before is the writing of man as well. So we have to take a lot of the things that.
And I'm not advocating that strict interpretation either.
No,
I'm just trying to explain it.
So I also tend to believe that you have to take a lot of what you like. I didn't believe in demons at one point in time, but I dealt with something that I could quote to those characteristics and could what people have dealt with before, and that feeling, that immense feeling that I felt. And I don't really say I'm clairsentient, clairaudient. I don't try to relate to anything with sense. So I'm dealing with that and seeing the people and the change within those people. I came to the realization these things do exist, and and for some people, realization of these things existing could deter their reality, could affect them immensely. But it actually made my faith stronger because it made me realize that if something like this exists, there's many different possibilities. And if there's a lot of possibilities, that means that...
Well, obviously it contradicts and defies logic because you can't have these invisible things, with minds in the human race, but yet they seem to be.
James, if you're not clairaudient or clairsentient, how do you understand if it's an evil spirit or a demon, an alien, say, a malevolent being?
Well, like I said, a lot of that comes from the data collection. How the reaction of the being that you're dealing with reacts, if it is a spirit and it is there, or it is transient. Like if it's a transient possession, the demon comes and goes from the person. The balance of the soul. That person's able to have their consciousness at that point because they're in control by free will. If not, that entity is in control because they were able to subdue their consciousness, and it was able to control them. So it's hard, It's I really think when you're dealing with things like this for a long time, I think your body just becomes accustomed. You can call it a sense, I guess.
Yes.
But you wouldn't call somebody that goes to work every day and they work with assholes every single day. And I know this will be on your show. You don't have to cut that out because this is a great word. You
can say asshole.
You can go to work every day. And everybody's an asshole, and you feel that. You stressed out every day you go to work because you're the people you deal with. Would you say that's a psychic ability, or would you say that's just that we have that naturally as people?
Natural sense.
Intuition,
Right, natural sense.
So
and certainly the empath word that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah. So I feel like that I've come accustomed to being around different people, around different situations, and the times that I have dealt with a demonic entity, I have felt nothing like I have before. So
it doesn't sound like you're like a negatively influencing person.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't become negative, but I just feel different.
I mean,
you could say that to correlate to clairsentient, clairaudient, but I don't always hear spirit. To be honest, I've probably audibly heard things.
Well, I have,
of course, definitely. But
it's always without warning, though, that I hear it. It's just spontaneous.
But what's interesting is when other people hear it.
Yeah.
So I don't like to correlate and say I'm any of those things, but I think over time my body has become accustomed to understanding the differences. I've been around negative people. Yeah. I've been around evil people. I've been around true evil people, in my opinion. People that would do dirty. They would kill people. So I've been around those kind of people. So I've know how being around those people feel.
Yeah.
And-
so you assimilated that.
Assimilate that in the times I dealt with it,
because it's a survival tactic. You gotta, if there's somebody that
It
needs
is. Probably does relate.
Yeah.
It's a fight. Well, it's a chemical reaction in our brain called a fight or flight. And
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, every time I've ever been in those situations, that chemical imbalance came to my brain and said, "Dude, get out of here! You gotta get out of here." But the person I am is like, of course, I'm a dummy. I'm gonna stay here. I'm a dummy. So I stay there because I have a care. I care, but I care. I'm there to help that person as any way I can.
So you may not be able to intellectualize.
My body's telling me to get out of this.
Why do you feel it? You say there's no reason for me to be wary of this person, but later on you analyze it. You think maybe it was something about this person's eyes and their manner, little cues, little subtle things. But it told you this is a counterproductive.
I've never felt like. And the demonic entities that I've dealt with are single digits, in my opinion. Single digits.
Which gets me to my next question.
Oh yes, what you got? He's gonna ask how many demonic cases.
Nope.
Nope. We were so prepared. Okay.
Same question I asked on Bigfoot and the Bunny. What is an exorcism to you, James? And have you been present in an exorcism?
To answer your second question fast and quickly, no, I have not been part of the solemn rite of exorcism. I've been part of a minor rite of exorcism, which is an exorcism over a house. It's a very extreme blessing over something of a place that has demonic infestation. That is what a minor rite of exorcism is. It's done over a place that has demonic infestation. A solemn rite of exorcism is done over a person that is possessed. You can do a deliverance over somebody that's oppressed, but you can also do exorcism, the solemn rite of exorcism, over somebody that's oppressed as well. But no, I've not been a part of the solemn rite, which is done over a person. I've been, like I said, the minor rite. What exorcism is to me is basically a very rigorous ritual that is done over a person, because where possession occurs and where people misunderstand possession and the ideologies and what exorcism is. Like I talked about Hippocrates earlier and how he was the father of medicine, how he performed as a psychotherapy.
Right.
In some ways, we have our personal demons and our inner demons, and that can influence us. But I do believe demons and what we, of course, just talked about exist in some nature and format. And
absolutely.
I think how demons possess an individual is, of course, we have free will. That is something that we can notably say. I can go outside right now and make a decision. It could be a smart decision, it could be a bad decision, but I can make a decision, right? Free will. So I think that anytime we make a decision, we have a repercussion of that. If we make a bad decision, if it is trying to talk to something that is unseeable, there could be a repercussion.
Generally not advisable.
Where you could be affected by something that's unseeable. It could be a demon, it could be a negative spirit, right?
Absolutely.
So in that same token of that experience of you do not know what you're speaking to, it's
and a lot of people just want the thrill. They want the experience. They want it. But I've had so many people say when I've talked about my experiences with the demonic encounters, they say, "Boy, I'd love to see something like that. I'd love to see something move across the room. I'd love a spirit to talk to me. Oh, I want because it's not happening in their house. But the same people, if they had an audio recorder going in their house, they heard a spirit voice talking to them, they're not going to want it.
Right.
In particular, if they weren't expecting it.
Yeah, the unexpected is
and there's the stages for the reason. People tend to forget the stages of demonic haunting. There's infestation, oppression, and possession. The oppression, the infestation is the target, the person that they think they could manipulate the most. The oppression is them manipulating that person and breaking that person's free will down. And that once that person's free will is broken, and many people don't realize it doesn't have to be something like they come out and say, "Oh, demon, take over me." But it could just be a subtle where they, at their breaking point, they say, "I can't do this anymore." That is an invitation for that entity to take over that person. And that's where possession occurs. So what an exorcism is basically a rigorous ritual for that person to take over their body again, because they have invited this being, what we call a demon, through a rigorous process of being broken down. And an exorcism is to be able to get that person's mentality back, where they're able to have a faith again and a structure to themselves, and are able to overcome whatever is manipulating or afflicting them, in whatever word, or even abusing them. There's many words for what this entity does to this person, but basically you have to get that person's free will back, or that person to fight, because through an exorcism, and of course, even though I have not been part of when I watch videos on true exorcisms, I've read many books. You know, my bishop is an exorcist. I am to be an exorcist one day. But in the same token is, you know, you see the changes, you see what goes on within that exorcism, but that the person tends to come in and out. You know, that's what transient possession is. When that person is able to overcome and fight, you're able to hear that person.
So that person is not lost at that stage.
Yeah, they're not lost in that stage, but that's what perfect possession is. But perfect possession has only happened probably, I'll count on one hand, probably maybe that I know of. That's been documented. So, you know, perfect possession is, of course, that person's free will is diminished. They're a vegetable. That demonic entity has true control of that person. And basically, that person is most likely, that human body is most likely going to deteriorate fast.
Well, there should be rules against that. Shouldn't there be holy rules against that? Why should that be forbidden?
Well, it's not forbidden because you gave up your right. When you say, I give up, you have given up your hope in God. And that's the point of that. You've given up hope in life and the beauties of it. And that, of course, that is debate. And it's been a debate for a long time. But that is why. Because you are given up hope. If you believe in God, and I truly do after so much of a long time of struggling it, if you look at it, that belief, you should not allow something like that to take over you. And of course, I know people have their internal struggles, and I'm not disagreeing. I had my own battle with something because I let my ego get the best of me. I'm human. But
We have a battle.
But that is the debate of it. That is the debate. That is why there can't be rules against it, because there are rules. We have our own free will. Yeah, we are in a struggle, in a dark place, but we always got to remember. And of course, this is something that we always got to remember. There's always a light at the end of that tunnel. And
you say always,
and that's why the debate of suicide is always a thing too, because suicide and of course the invitation of something long.
If somebody has given themselves over and has given up, I resign. The depression is too great. Let this entity, I can't fight it anymore. Perhaps that person is lost. Yeah. Whereas in suicide, of course, you can't come back.
You can't come back, but.
But at what stage is the person, and it's an individual basis, but at what stage is the person totally beyond reclamation? Can't come back.
Well,
I think of the classic Annalise.
Well, Annalise McKell was in perfect possession. The reason that she died was because of malnutrition. They didn't have a proper doctor involved, and you know, and her within her transient possessions and during her exorcisms, she was not because of the process. She was not taking food down, and they should have had a doctor there. And they did not, and that is why they went to prison, the priests. And that is why in Germany for a long time exorcisms were banned. And it was recently banned again because of another death in Germany.
I didn't know about that.
A death in Germany, yes.
That was attributed to possession or the hallmarks of possession?
Due to an exorcism. But Annalise McKell died not because of perfect possession, but she died because of malnutrition, which occurs. We got to remember, and I think this is where people... If we call demons evil, right? Stress is a negative emotion. Stress is a negative thing, right? Look at what stress does. It causes cancer. It causes illnesses. It causes many things that can kill us, right?
Great.
If a demonic entity is pure evil in ideology, it is a part of our body. It uses us. Our body's going to deteriorate, correct?
Have you seen that in process? Correct. I've seen somebody starting to deteriorate.
I haven't.
Maybe not in perfect
documentation. Like Annalise McKell is a perfect example of it.
Yes.
She was going through, I think, true possession. I think she was going through transient possession. But I also think there was medical issues involved. And because of those medical issues and because of what she was going through, there was a mixture of things that caused her death. And I think because what was influencing her and what was involved in her body with her medical things is what was causing her death and what causing her to deteriorate. And that's why I said if there is a perfect possession, it is a very serious thing because of perfect possession. That person's body's going to deteriorate. Could you imagine what stress does to us? I bet they would develop, that body would develop cancer, would develop many different.
Well, it weakens your immune system.
Illnesses.
So many ways. Like it seems to almost go to self-doubt. Just two simple words. Self-doubt. And that self-doubt is exactly what's being explicit.
The exorcist can become the catalyst, can be that voice and help the person to find their inner strength. But he's he's generally a male. He is the catalyst, and he's this voice coming and saying, no, the demon does not have power over you. You must believe that faith is stronger, that God's intervention is stronger.
Well, the exorcist is the mediator, but
he is the mediator.
Like a demonologist, the mediator between in my where I'm the mediator.
In this case, I'm using catalyst and mediator as simultaneous terms.
Like so as a demonologist, I am the mediator between the family and the exorcist, right?
Right.
In ideologists, when the exorcist, like Carl was saying, when the exorcist comes in, the exorcist is the catalyst or the mediator between God and the person. Because the priest doesn't have no power. We're human, right? So we don't have power to push it.
Whereas Jesus would be the propitiator.
Well,
the
Jesus
human being,
was God.
Yeah, the human being is the mediator, the intercessory. Or the intercessor in that case, So, but does the priest actually have power, though? Because it is thought that the priest has power.
Well, I think...
But it's a connection to God, right?
He has a connection to God.
I'm sure it's Quaker.
It's a good question in where they become holy men, why they have a connection to God. And, of course, there's been many people that have worn a collar that have been proven to be very bad people. I think where
once or twice I've heard of that.
Why I think where a lot of people tend to lead to people that are priests, why they have the connection to God is because a lot of priests, especially exorcists that take their job seriously, like a Father Chad Ripperger, their day from start to finish is praying. That's all they do is pray. They take Mass every day. They do liturgy of the Word every day. They do liturgy of the Eucharist every day. That is their day every life. That is what they do every single day of their life, 365, of course, especially monks, because a lot of exorcists live a monk life. That's what they live from start to finish. And that is why they say they have connections, because they study God, they're theologians, and they also live that prayer life. I can't say I do because I don't live in a monastery, and I'm not.
You complain about the food, for one thing.
I would, probably. But that is why they say that priests are that connection but it's also because they're properly trained.
Properly trained, but are
in the rite of exorcism?
In the pure interpretation of a Catholic priest, an ordained priest and minister, he is invested with the power of God, and that he can act independent. Of course, he relies on godly power, but he is acting independently on his own volition. He can forgive sins. He can say that sins forgiven. He can give the last rites.
Well, he can forgive sins and do all that because he have lay of hands because of the apostolic succession.
Yeah,
apostolic succession. That is why, because the apostles, Jesus said, "These are my apostles."
Yeah,
and it's been passed down. That's why lay of hands. That's
Protestant interpretation. That's just a human being. He should not be thought of as been invested with these powers.
Yeah, well, they're not
necessarily.
It's not necessarily the priest's
No priest would say, "I have the power," but he would say, "God has vested this power in me."
When you do the transubstantiation of
transubstantiation, where it's
when you turn the bread into the body of Christ, right? It's not the priest doing that. It's not the priest.
No priest would claim to be doing that on his own power.
And if you look at Catholicism, that is regardless if we want to talk about exorcism, that is the most.
We want to talk about exorcism.
Exorcisms are sacramental. The Eucharist is a sacrament. It is the most powerful thing. It is the most important thing. And why people
Jesus, right?
Yeah, it's the body of Jesus. But why people tend to forget, and of course Hinduism has exorcism.
See, I think you're more schooled in Hinduism.
No,
their traditions than I am.
No, but
you more recently.
But with Hinduism and exorcism with the fervor dagger, and Judaism with their rituals, they have exorcism rituals too, of course. With the exorcism rituals, the Catholicistic belief system.
When you're talking fast, it's hard to say Catholicism. Those names, you get stroke in your
so
throat.
much going in the wheel, turning in the wheel.
But
or in Spanish, Católica.
But with that reason, people tend to forget why Catholic priests are the only ones to be able to do the rite of exorcism. Is because exorcisms, at the end of it, have mass. And the only person that is able to
perform the mass, at the mass.
Well, the only person that able to do the transubstantiation, because of the lay of hands, is of course the priest. The deacon, of course, can do deacon's mass. If I have the host in my bedroom right now in a tabernacle, I can do a deacon's mass and give it to you because it's already been blessed. The transubstantiation's already happened. But in most times, you're not going to have the host at nature like that. It's going to be at the church in a tabernacle. So you would have the host. You would do the whole liturgy of the word, the liturgy of the Eucharist. Mm-hmm. So that's why the priest would do the mass at that. That's why most exorcists, or all exorcists in the Catholic Church,
you can make priests. Holy water, can't you, James?
Well, of course I can, because I can do the sacrament of baptism.
Yes.
I can do baptism as matrimony. So I can do holy water. I can do oil. The only thing I could technically do exorcisms, because it is a sacramental, but I'm not trained.
Say you were in a position where
I would have to perform a deacon's mass, and a deacon's mass is not as powerful as the liturgy of the
So it would not be as effective, but it could be a temporary measure.
It could be a temporary, but I could also do a deliverance. I could do a deliverance, and that would in an emergency situation also be able to subside.
It's like birthing a baby in an emergency situation. If you're called upon, then you have to make that decision. Are you going to birth that baby, and are you going to try to cast out that evil spirit?
Well,
I wouldn't want to live off the difference.
Well, a deliverance can cast out, but you also don't.
What's a deliverance, though?
Well, a deliverance, of course, an exorcism has the deliverance in it, right? So basically, when you perform an exorcism, you are delivering the spirit. You are telling it to go. But the problem is, with an exorcism, there is many different formats to that ritual that are far more than a deliverance ritual. So a deliverance usually would be done on somebody that has an attachment, and it is a lesser ritual with less not like say less intent, but less invocation to it. Like when you're dealing with
less
spirit,
formal,
and
therefore less complex.
Very good. So, but I would do a deliverance on somebody that has an attachment, somebody that maybe is oppressed, because at that point in time, they don't need that complexity to what they're dealing with, because it is not so well infused within that person.
Yeah, I was talking about.
You can cut the cord faster.
Situation, yeah. Well, I would call that an expulsion, and I have presided at an expulsion a couple of times because I felt I needed to at the time. I figured if it does damage, the collateral damage, I'll, pick up the pieces afterwards. I have to act now. We'll analyze it later. I'm just going to come answer the call and try to inspire confidence in the people I'm helping. Yeah. But then again, I would refer them to more experienced people afterwards.
Oh, definitely. And I can't, especially being part of the Catholic Church, Carl, of course, is not. I have a lot of different things I have to abide by. If I deal with a person, there has to be a paper trail. They have to know. There has to be documentation. There has to be many different things. If I don't do it, I get in very much trouble. I did a case many years ago that I didn't properly handle, right? And I'll admit it, because we all make mistakes. I still helped that person 9 years later. And, they were somehow mad at me for me not helping them 9 years later, even though I've gotten people involved the past 9 years, right? They were mad at me, and they said all this stuff about me. And guess what? I got the church involved. If I hated them so bad, I wouldn't have gotten the church involved. But they told the church all these things that I did 9 years ago, which I never really necessarily did. But, still, I have a lot of things, even things that I did back when I wasn't part of the church. They still view those things like that. I did not go the proper course on certain things, and of course that was me.
That was that long ago.
Of course they reprimand you about it, and they speak to you about it because they want to make sure that you're doing the proper protocols.
Right, but
it's important to them.
You were new at the time, so you really, you wanted to do it. You wanted to help them.
Oh, definitely. And they understand that, but that just shows you. And I never got it. Like, I was a deliverance minister for the Church of Christ before I was a Catholic deacon. Before I went through Catholic seminary, I was a minister with the Church of Christ. And their seminary was hell of a lot easier. Definitely easy to go through. I do respect their church, and it was a good part of my life. It really was the foundation of my faith. It really led me to believe in God, especially when I was in the military. But the same thing, though, I did not understand the Catholic system for a long time. I did not understand it. I did not understand why it took so long for the Catholic Church to get involved with somebody. But now being a part of the Catholic Church and being more knowledgeable and understandable, I understand why it takes them so long to get involved, because they want to take the proper precautions. Because when you deal with people, it's dangerous.
Well, James, do you feel more effective battling demons now that you embrace the Catholic faith?
I feel like I am more effective by getting them the right help, if not
going through the
and not misdiagnosing them with the D word and then being royally fucked up.
Which is always, you hear that. We get email contacts and
all the time.
Social media. People contact us and say, I have a demon in my house. Sometimes they'll say, I think we have a demonic influence. But
that's a red flag to me automatically. If I hear that word, it's a red flag. It's a red flag to me.
Because if it's
exactly,
scary,
that's why we're doing this series. Because the demon gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
It's not to say that this doesn't exist. It's more to say, what is it? What is it really? Not just from TV, but what is it? What are demons to cultures, to people, to religions, all of that.
And what's your perspective of it?
What's the difference between that and, say, a typical haunting? And what may be a spirit in the house?
It depends on who you're asking. Some people, it's
everything
all
is
demonic.
Your grandmother. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think, Carl said perfectly that, his brother Keith believes every spirit is demonic. Maybe his...
Yeah, my identical twin brother, Keith.
Really?
Yeah. But in that same token of nature as well is, I don't necessarily believe that. I believe there is a distinction
between a human-generated spirit and a non-human demonic.
Non-human demonic, yeah. I think there could be differences. I think there could be different possibilities. Yes, I did hiccup. I'm sorry. But I definitely think, with Keith's ideologies and beliefs that everything is demonic, I don't necessarily agree with that. But I also don't say that it's not necessarily wrong, because I believe that when you're doing this kind of work, and I tell people this, and I dabble a little bit. I do investigate, especially when Carl and I do an event, and there's investigation part of it. Of course, I'm contractually part of that investigation. They ask me to do it, I have to do it. I'm not going to say no, because that is what they're requesting. But in the same token, I also say to the same token, when you're speaking to something that you can't see, it's dangerous. And you have to take the proper precautions.
Right, it's very...
Well, it's like walking into a room with the lights off.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to walk into unless you know that room.
There's a floor beneath you, there's a ceiling above you, but you don't know what objects are in that. You're going to be walking around virtually blind.
Right.
I could do that in my house because I mapped this house out. But if you're in a new place, you're going to walk into something.
Well, that's a good analogy, too. If you're in a familiar place, then you know your way around. So you never could trip. You could never fall on the stairs here with the lights off. That's just impossible. You never walk into a chair.
You wishes upon me that.
No, I don't.
Now tonight I'm gonna fall down the stairs.
No,
you're gonna call.
So the next show we're on, James can't be with us tonight, but there's a reason for that. And I'm dealing with it as best I can.
I see.
Now, you said you could get around your house with the lights on. You said it. You said it.
Sure.
Whether that'll ever happen, I don't know, but you said it. Step out on faith, dude. Be a good Catholic. Step out on faith. Yes.
What do you guys think about like roles and unclean spirit, which is a common term in the Bible that comes up often as a demon? Is that really a demon, or is a demon something that never existed as human? Also, I would ask, what about these roles? Like, do spirits or bad intentioned entities maybe step up to roles that they don't actually own?
Well, if I understand your question, you're talking about the difference between human spirits and demonic ones. Now, it's hard to define what would be a human spirit that has a wicked disposition and what would be actually a demon. They should be two different animals, two different species, non-physical animals. But I've encountered entities that really seem to be spirits, like human spirits that just,
they were jackass when they were alive.
Yeah, they brought that jackassedness over to the next world, though they're staying around our world. And they really don't seem demonic. They'll move things. They'll lose things on you. They'll show up and scare you, but they're not. I got to chew some ice. You're influencing me, man.
Sorry, it's so good.
It is. But, you got human. And there's your haunting. Like wicked Uncle Joe, or this spirit that's been to the house. He was around in the time of the Civil War, and he's been
serial murder that died, and they linger around where their murders happened.
Or something worse,
Because it brought them so much.
And they keep replaying that evil act.
Yeah.
That heinous act. But the demonic, it's a whole different feeling when there's a demonic presence around. You feel oppressed. You feel something heavy. You feel like, oh, I just don't feel right. I feel sick. I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
Whereas a human spirit is not going to be that invasive. It's going to appear. And it can't do a lot of damage except scare you. Whereas the demonic has an agenda.
Yeah.
So there is a difference. But if you ask my brother, he would say you should just, he thinks in black and white terms. And I'm not saying that's worse or better.
Yeah.
When I'm theorizing, and I think there are human spirits and demonic spirits, I do so with an amount of trepidation because I can't know I'm dealing with the unknown. As a demonologist, I am an expert in the unknowable.
Yeah.
And, suppose it is that way. Suppose all unseen beings
are demons.
It's part of my mind wonders that.
Yeah.
That's the ideology of the Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
That spirits are impossible. So if you're being visited by a spirit, a detective spirit, that's demonic.
Yeah, and they hit upon that a little bit because he hit it pretty well. Is we talked about Brian Cano earlier because you sent me a photo.
This is the 1 year anniversary today, the 24th of April, of when Brian J. Cano, or Cano is pronounced his name, Brian J. Cano, drove from Schenectady, New York, and came and visited Elise and me because we were on a werewolf chase. Mm-hmm. And he came up there, and that was just interesting before. Yeah, the werewolf is actually more like a dog female, and there was human attributes, and it had been photographed and all, but we didn't see it the night that Brian was here. But I got a nice picture of Elise and me and Brian, and that's a good memory. That 1 year ago already. Where did it go?
But the story of Brian is, Brian and I are good friends as well as Carl's with him, but he has said on interviews before, and of course in personal conversations as well, he has said, the best thing I can tell people with my answer is when it comes to what are ghosts. And his answer, of course, my answer would be, I don't know. And I think that in the same relation goes back to what are demons. We have these things that were written by people much smarter than I, much smarter than Carl, and Carl's pretty damn smart though. But
I can talk.
But in the same token of it, though, these things have been passed down for a very long time.
So you feel many people as value
in reality, the best answer at the end of the day is we don't know, but we can take a look.
And that's not what people want to hear. They say, "You're a demonologist. I'm going to the person who's supposed to know."
Well, that's when and that's where we apply the study, and that's where people tend to forget. We apply the study, things that have been maybe eyewitnessed by these theologians, or eyewitnessed by exorcists, or eyewitnessed by former demonologists that are no longer on this realm. Things that have been written, like the Malaphites, things that have been written in that. So it's just like, we take a lot of those things, we apply it, we try to apply it, but at the end of the day, it's not a fact. So we try to accumulate all these different ideologies, all these different thoughts, theories.
Right. So we can't say it's fact or not.
Yeah.
We don't know. So we ponder these things, and we look to the people that actually study them, like you guys. So,
Right.
we so appreciate it because we don't
provide
time to look and
the average person.
investigate this
We
stuff.
haven't figured out yet.
You guys do.
But in the same, you know that it's not a fact. Carl, and have had our experiences, and we have had our experiences that correlate to a lot of the studies that are out there. Like I've dealt with things that I've read in books, and it's not because I've taken it as my perception of reality. What's multiple people observed this. It wasn't just something I observed. Multiple people observed, and these things are written in books of well, this is what you observe. And so I've seen that. I've been a part of what has been written down, but not a lot of people have these experiences. People only will ever hear the word demon. They'll never experience it.
And that's kind of the thing with the paranormal. It's like a lot of people don't believe in it until it happens.
Right.
It's happening.
And then it happens, and then they go, "Oh, wait a minute!
Mm-hmm.
How did that can move across the counter?" That is a thing that I think that happens to more people than they like to admit. And hence the popularity of
Because they
paranormal.
often won't talk about it because it upsets their interpretation of the world, how things work. This can't be, but now it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
They really don't want to discuss it.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter, and I'll say this on record because I don't mind, but I think a lot of what people deal with, and this is what I've come, of course, to have realized in dealing with people, is what I deal with is not spirits or demons most of the time. It's actually poltergeist or thought form or
this is very
PK activity.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of the things that I've dealt with are been perceived by people and becomes reality because they put so much thought and perception into it. It's part of their reality. I feel like that is more something that I've dealt with more than a demon or spirit, and that's my true opinion, of course. But that is from what has been written down of what a poltergeist is, what a thought form. It fits to the T. People tend to forget poltergeists have multiple levels. They have 5 levels of classification of how they attribute to what they're dealing with.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 5 levels of you know that, Carl, right?
Yeah.
I think actually you might have wrote that at some point.
Actually, yeah, that is. I've written that. Yeah.
Probably. So.
But thank you for. I'm glad you did. Yeah. Thank you.
So there's 5 levels of classifications of. People like to say equated to noisy spirit, but in reality, a poltergeist is a creation by PK activity where you are creating something and it becomes a force of intelligence where it's able to do and manipulate
It
things.
seems to be, again, we're speaking in theory, in supposition, but it seems to be a created spirit.
Yeah.
A mind.
Yeah.
And they can be subtle. I mean, a poltergeist can move a chair across the room. I've been twice.
Yeah.
I've been in a chair that moved, just me in the chair, moved all the way back across the room. And that seems to be PK activity.
And that, yeah. And
But, but why can't a poltergeist be what moves a planchette on a Ouija board?
Well, that's why you hear people use the terminology poltergeist-like activity. I've heard it so many times. I had like poltergeist-like activity. I think that's in the same concept of something moving. I think that's people's mindset because people tend to forget the realization of what a poltergeist is by people's opinions, of course, because it's not fact. Yeah. But if you look at, of course, parapsychology, poltergeists and PK activity, and of course, like thought form are very, very big things a part of parapsychology. Telekinesis, telepathy, So.
Yeah, it's very poorly understood. You can talk more about what a poltergeist does than what it is.
Of course, and we could also talk about the levels too, like how most people will think because where it's important in demonology is with level 5. A lot of people miss it. Level 5 is basically furniture moving, beds moving. Seems very negative in nature. It's very high wind. There's a lot of theatrics going on, and a lot of people correlate that to something demonic because that's what everybody's conception of a demonic entity is, that it's going to come out, start moving chairs and beds. But a demon doesn't do that. It works in the shadows. It's very manipulative. It won't come out and always do the theatrical things like that.
Like move a doll's head that has a pull string that doesn't touch the pull string, but the doll's head moves anyway.
A demon could do that. A demon definitely could do that.
To think of
Poltergeist could do that, right?
But a poltergeist could do that too. Yeah, especially if and this is where items of attachment. Do they have an attachment, or do this person's...
Is there something really invested in that object
by the person, where they put so much perception in that object, where the object starts to have its own conceived life?
Takes on a life of its own.
Of its own. And that could also be a form of thought form as well.
Especially creepy when applied to dolls.
But
because
it's applied to an object
bodies.
instead of applied invisibly.
Right. How about if it like just does it out of spite?
Well,
that spite is to get draw attention to it.
Well, poltergeist gains his own intelligence eventually.
Yeah.
It's like, in a way, it's like creating artificial intelligence, but in a way, you are, but it's invisible in sense. But you're creating so much, and a poltergeist can have negative reaction.
It can create havoc. It seems to have limitations. I've heard a very powerful poltergeist.
It can't possess you, of course.
It's not going to possess you. They can have a voice. People don't know that sometimes poltergeist will evince a voice, project a voice. But it seems to have some limitations. Why don't poltergeists... Oh, they have trip people down the stairs. But why aren't the poltergeists throwing people out of windows?
Yeah.
You know, I was in a case in Coventry, Rhode Island, with poltergeist activity. And I was holding a remote thermal gauge in my right hand. And a center of activity was the master bedroom, and I was there. And I just happened to turn to the hallway, and I saw this knife coming at me. This was not scary because it happened too quickly. But it wasn't like somebody threw it like one of the kids. You know, it wasn't coming down like that. It wasn't spinning. It was like coming at me, like kind of like that. And it hit the instrument in my hand, but it didn't hit my hand. Not that I think it would have done real damage to my hand, but it hit the plastic casing of the instrument I held and clattered on the floor. And I was just flattered that it picked me up.
Was it real? Was it a perception that you saw this night?
We actually saw this manifestation.
That fell.
And of course, I went right to the hallway to see if any of the children could have done that. But no, nobody was around. They couldn't have gotten away fast enough.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was also one of the places where my chair went back across the wall. A dinner plate appeared over my head and smashed down in front of me. I didn't see it appear, but I saw it smash down in front of me. Everybody in the room attested that just appeared over my head. Too bad we weren't really cavorting back then, because that was right on the cusp of you. That's just before I knew you.
Was that
a year before, actually?
Oh, I was alive, actually. I wasn't a sperm or anything like that.
Sperm myself. I have to answer.
Semen?
My dad's balls.
Yeah. No. I don't know. You were pretty good.
I'm sorry. I got a question.
You guys are awesome.
But you guys are funny as hell.
So I love it.
I love it.
Demonologist here. Yeah.
We have to have a humor because we can go insane with this shit.
Oh, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
I had something push me down the stairs when I was a child, and
oh, really?
I thought it was demonic. Demonic. You think I'd be drinking?
Demonic.
But it's
Speaking
we're demonologists now.
Yeah, that's
phenomenon. Yeah,
Yeah.
phenomenon. Anyway.
Phenomena. Yeah.
All right, don't get me on that.
A lot of people in the paranormal have a history of haunted childhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's in the same token too, where I didn't actually, so I can't relate to that. I did not. My really came from the search of God. What got me involved in the paranormal, but it also really falls into the same line of why most psychologists get into psychology, because they dealt with the personal experience in their life that made them wonder why a person can do something like that. Why would it happen to them? And it's the same token for people that deal with the paranormal.
I had a personal friend who was compelled to research the paranormal because of a childhood experience. And that is Jason Hawes. from Ghost Hunters, and now Ghost Nation. You had an experience too as a child?
We both did.
Both did, yeah.
Wow.
He ran with it. I totally blocked it all out.
But Jason's experience, he confided that to me, and of course that was the storyline that they used in Ghost Hunters. Jason's mysterious experience. What compelled him to get into paranormal research? What happened to him? We'll keep it a mystery. And then later in Paranormal State, Ryan Buell ran with that storyline, that he had some terrific demonic experience when he was young, very young. I won't reveal Jason's experience, though he did tell me. I mean, it wasn't anything you wouldn't guess at if you thought about it, but out of respect that he did confide that to me, I won't get into detail. But he had something that got him interested in ghost hunting.
Really?
Yeah. I was in, I believe, 1998. I met the spring of 1998. I met Jason Hawes. Let me see. Wait a minute. Probably around that time. Unless it was 97, my memory on it is imperfect. But I moved to New York for a while, and then when I came back, I got more involved with TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society. My involvement was on hiatus for a while, but I met him. I answered an ad in the Warwick Beacon. Somebody was looking for an experienced paranormal investigator, and Jason and I hit it off right away. But with the advent of the show, things exploded in the popular paranormal, but they also, in another sense, deteriorated because that blew apart some of the friendships.
Yeah, definitely.
They just, eroded.
Yeah.
Distancing.
Right. You were on a lot of those shows.
Yeah, quite a few. I count them,
Those are kind of considered the best shows, by the way, Carl.
Jason was already looking to start a TV show, but I gave it its concept. I was involved in its development and production. I came up with a good concept to launch the show, and that's what became the premise for Ghost Hunters. But then there was some erosion, and it got away from reality and became very formulaic. Yeah, but I am pleased when people refer to the first couple of years of Ghost Hunters, when the demonologists were on it, as their golden time. But it was a very successful show and became a franchise.
Yeah, and you were saying that, before the course of the shows, you had books, and a lot of people tend to forget of people like the Ghost Club with Charles Dickens and Babbage.
The Hellfire Club and the Ghost Club and all that.
People tend to forget that. People tend to forget about Harry Price, and of course Hans Holst is popular now again because of course the show. But people tend to forget of the precursors of us. They
were the big names.
Even the idea of Duo Daemonology, right? That comes from the King James.
Daemonology comes, Duo, of course, is 2 for Latin, but Daemonology comes from King James, which, of course, which most people don't realize as well, inspired William Shakespeare to write Macbeth because of King James Daemonology. So it is
the conjuration of the witches.
Yes, it is. It in a way is very important in history because Macbeth is very important in literature. Demonology has its roots. 1936.
No, we're talking about 1606.
1606. Yeah. Sorry.
No, but it's easy to equate that because this was, where you're talking about the 14th century.
1436 is the Malaphites, I believe.
Well, which is the 15th century, and that's the emergence of the Renaissance. Yeah. Really, you can think of very loosely defined the Middle Ages. Yeah. Goes from 500 AD to 1350 AD, but there's a lot of change in Europe at that time. Yeah. And then you've got this Renaissance, which means the rebirth. Yeah. This age of enlightenment, which is in strata. It didn't happen overnight.
And the word demonology wasn't really thoughtfully used until King James actually kind of embroidered the word in the culture, because it really wasn't,
Right.
It was.
You could say that modern demonology originates at that time.
Basically, from the concept of King
beginning
James.
of the 17th century, and King James.
Yeah.
We say demonology. That was the common parlance of the time.
Yeah, that was the interpretation of it. Yeah, back then.
Yeah, up until the 1500s, the court language in England was French. Yeah. Because everything French was better. It was erudite. But then then it's this romanticized English by our interpretation, you know, thee and thou and all. It's, you know, just in a majestic way. I think the King James Version of the Bible is just majestic.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite version.
And it's more, I think it's more accurate.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Well, I think he also does, of course, King James adds a little flair into it.
Well, he does. There is, that's interpretative in some ways, you know. Well, and just give you an example, like Jesus would say, you know, truly I say unto you, in the New International Version, that is, I tell you the truth of the Holy Bible. In the King James Version, it's verily, verily I say unto thee. I kind of like that talk because I can rattle.
Even though Jesus probably didn't say it like that.
You know, when I was in Sunday school as a boy, going to Bethany Lutheran Church in Cranston, Rhode Island, my father's church, I assume, you know, I'm like 6, 7 years old. I thought that's the way people talked in, you know, in Jerusalem. And when I heard there's a Jerusalem around, I could go to Jerusalem. You know, I know people have been to Jerusalem. You know, I didn't know there was a Jerusalem, you know, and a Galilee in Rhode Island. And but I thought, and let's say up until I was 7 years old, I think it was, I just assumed that that's the way that's the way Jesus talked, you know.
And you talk like that now at 65 years old.
Yeah, I do. I've been told I talk like Adam West in Batman. You know, yeah.
Carl comes in my house. Ardo, how are you?
Not that much. Or out there, James.
Oh, out there, James.
Yes. Greetings to thee. Greetings to thee, James. I'm here to mentor you.
Now you hear what I do, you guys.
This is my boy, and I'll mentor you.
My squire. My squire.
Squire. We're turning into Monty Python now.
I told you put me a flesh wound.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. What would we do without Monty Python? Yeah. Let's do our next show about the origins of Monty Python, because I know something about
Oh my God. We were just talking
Bring
about
out
that.
your dad.
Oh God.
Bring out your dad.
But I'm happy.
Wait, we can't go there yet.
I'm
Right.
happy.
Too soon.
Yeah, Graham Chapman and Michael Palin and John Cleese. I love those guys, you know. But that actually started. There was a show, a British show. It was in black and white, and it was, you know, like almost kinescope. You know, it was like 1960 because it was 1968, and there was a show. I mean, the Beatles had just put out Sgt. Pepper's 2 years before, and doing the White Album and all that. And then in 1968, there's this show on. This English show called "Do Not Attempt to Adjust Your Television."
Oh, I
Totally
heard
black
that.
and white, and it was this performing troupe, and that was their name, you know, like "Do Not Attempt to Adjust Your Television." That was the name of the comedy troupe, and they would have an act called the Bonzo Dog Band. It was just the players, the cast of the show, and the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band would come out and do these goofy songs, and they do skit after skit, and that evolved into Monty Python's Flying Circus, later just known as Monty Python. And that's how they started, you know?
These guys are walking in
They're the best.
Yeah.
Monty Python.
Vivian Stanch. You've got Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield, composed when he was 17 years old. That became the theme to The Exorcist. And if you listen to that album all the way through, what was then side 2 because it was 2-sided LP, you have this this blending of instruments, and you hear this British voice that say grand piano, glockenspiel, acoustic guitar, and introducing, you know, it says acoustic guitar, and introducing, you know, electric guitar, you know, and two slightly distorted.
Wow, you sound distorted.
Grand piano, and I'm saying that guy sounds like a Monty Python guy, and by gum, it was Vivian Stanchel of Monty Python.
That is so cool.
I mean, you know, it's like these people are almost like.
Yeah.
To employ a Rhode Island redundancy, they're interrelated, you know?
Yeah.
Like interconnected and interrelated, we say that. You kind of sound British, you know, like
We do. That's our accent.
Well, I think the Bostonian accent, I think it's more because I've had people ask me if I'm from England all the time, like especially when I start.
Guys, you don't sound like us there. You don't sound like a Boston guy.
We tend to forget we're called
No,
New
but
England.
I think
New England. New England.
New England.
Where does the England come from, I guess?
Yeah, we are the New England.
But if you listen to them speak in British, it does sound like our words.
It does. It does.
It does.
They say
I believe
they
that's
say
where it
car.
came from.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
The garage. Park the car in the garage.
Park the
Yeah. they're very racist, aren't they? You know.
Well, on that weird note, what do you guys think about the Bridgewater Triangle?
Oh my word, yes, the Bridgewater Triangle. You've been there.
Yes, I have.
So much has been reported there. I think it's mystique.
Yeah. Well, I tend to look at the realities of anything that has something that causes a haunting, aka natural things, and people tend to forget in the Bridgewater Triangle and where the Bermuda Triangle is, there tends to be a more aspect of ley lines.
Yes, I agree.
And I think where there are more essential things of ley lines or things of travel energy, high, maybe water, because water's energy. But anything that has anything to do with the movement of life, basically, I think has essential points. So maybe the Bridgewater Triangle, even though it is not technically a triangle in square footage.
Well, you can draw a triangle.
You can, but it's not necessarily a triangle. But within that area,
it's an isosceles triangle.
You gotta figure
it's not a reticular triangle.
But
I gotta include Swansea in that because Swansea was the
well, we'll get to find out. I think it's gradual.
Start of King Philip's War.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yes. Now, what gets incorporated into this is even quantum speculation. You know that there are portals, there are vertices, there are conduits where there's rifts in the dimensional fabric where these beings.
I agree.
Travel back and forth, which would explain why Bigfoot is there and suddenly not, and
Yeah, I think anything of high impact can have a possibility.
Which I've been more interested in. That's something that at least Jamarco Carlson has been reading up on quite a bit, studying actually. Yeah. She doesn't say she's studying, but she is.
No,
what could cause these manifestations?
It's very interesting. I think that's I think the biggest debate. People of course with limestone, and of course how it collects energy, and of course that's why a lot of places with limestone.
Rhode Island is kind of a portal.
Well, I will say though I've had more collection of cases in the triangle. Maybe that is perception.
Yeah, I think there is.
But
some kind
I also tend to think is a lot of people tend to forget a lot of that triangle has those high power lines that go throughout.
And what is the apex?
That's very true.
Being the apex.
Look at what that power. We talk about high EMF and what it does to people. Look what those power lines. Have you ever been under those power lines? You feel sick to your stomach.
You can feel it. My teeth tingle. I can feel it in my teeth. You can hear it. If you can hear it, it's a really good charge. Hockomock Swamp.
The power lines are right near there.
The power lines go right through there. In fact, I was on a TAPS investigation of the Hockomock Swamp.
Hockomock Swamp is supposed to be one of the worst parts of that area too.
15 years ago now, and I didn't get any paranormal activity that night, probably because Brian Hunt was there and he screwed everything up. And just being there, but I took a picture. I took a picture of a transformer there, and it was sprayed with orbs. So that shows there was an emittance of electric power.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything. Basic paranormal.
It's like.
No, I think there's areas throughout the whole country like Alaska, Iowa that have their own triangles where activity happens more within those locations. And it's probably environmental reasons, but Rhode Island, Massachusetts. I've had the pleasure to investigate from here to California. I've had the pleasure, but I would say some of my most favorite locations are of course on the East Coast because. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, it's the birth of this country in many different ways.
You've got the study and exploration group, the Spooky South Coast, which is a popular radio show. Yeah. Jeff Belanger, Tim Weisberg, Matt Moniz formerly, and Lake formerly, and they concentrate on the Bridgewater Triangle.
Right.
It's a hunting ground.
Chris Belzano.
Allen House and
Yep.
Dark Woods.
I just did an excerpt. Sam Baltrusis. You ever heard of Sam Baltrusis?
Baltrusis.
Yeah.
He just did something on Freetown stuff. For me and him, I was part of the Freetown State Forest chapter. I did a walkthrough with him, and we talked about the murders and this stuff like that. But of course, that has a lot of bleed over in the Fall River as well, too.
Spills over.
Yeah.
Paranormal investigative team was there last year in Freetown State Forest. They found the reason they went there is because they somebody found a goat that had been killed, a white goat that had been ritualistically slaughtered.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing with these certain places that have cults, let's say, attached to them.
Occult practices, yeah.
Yeah, occult. Thank you. Yes, and we're actually investigating something that has the same thing. And I swear, because I do feel, we'll say I'm a little bit clairsentient, that it's not in the cemetery itself. It's actually in the woods. And every time I go there, I don't want to be there. And I
Woods with personality.
contact it.
A menacing personality, just formidable.
Say
Something about the woods there. I don't
Yes.
feel it everywhere. And it's not because of reputation. I just do feel it there. It has a resonance to it you pick up on. James and I met about 10 years ago, and we didn't know what it was going to lead to. We had a good association. We kind of lost touch, but not totally out of touch. But in 2019, James came up with a unique concept. We knew we wanted a partnership, but James gave it the name of Duo Daemonology. He explained why. And it's a demonology research unit. And we're trying to legitimize demonology. That is the purpose of Duo Daemonology. And I think we're a charismatic union here.
Yeah.
Compliment each other.
Yeah, that's funny.
And the lectures are always different. You won't even the question. We don't get a totally different answer.
But intelligent.
A different approach to that answer.
Right, and that's the best part about it is you guys have different views.
Yeah. And
Well, you hear us. We even start debating at some point.
Yeah,
I love it.
and of course,
Or I start interviewing you.
And of course, to the same tone, Carl's very well versed, and I respect the man. He's been around
Thank
for
you.
a long time. Very well educated, as you can tell. Of course, when you hear me speak compared to this man, you can very adequately hear that. But so Duo Daemonology takes his very extensive amount of years of research, and of course, my not so extensive amount. But it's two different token of belief systems and ideologies, and I've dealt with things that he's never dealt with, maybe necessarily, or looked at it that way. So we take that and combine it, and we approach it in many different ways. And I think that's what's powerful about Duo Daemonology, because we're able to assess it in different ways. And I think it's imperative and important.
Awesome.
But it makes us better for it because we're like make a unit.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
It's a sense of completion.
you guys are great together.
Thank you.
I love talking to you guys. We've had so much fun tonight.
We have.
I always do.
Always.
Thank
So
you
where
very
can we
much.
find you?
Yeah, get in touch with us. The primary way to get in touch with Duo Daemonology is the ubiquitous Facebook.
Yeah.
We're not that hard to find. Go to Facebook, do a search for Duo Daemonology, and then you will also find Panorama Paranormal. That is directed by Elise Carlson. Elise
Right,
Carlson.
Elise.
And she's indispensable to us. So Panorama Paranormal on Facebook. You don't need any more information than that, but it leads to other means of contact. And Duo Daemonology on Facebook.
We hope that you enjoyed our interview. Here are the 2 EVPs that we mentioned in the front of the podcast.
What you got?
Just gonna ask how many demonic cases.
What you got?
Just gonna ask how many demonic cases.
For a long time, I did not understand it. I did not understand why it took so long. For a long time, I did not understand it. I did not understand why it took so long.
That's right. If you rewind this and you go to 1 hour, 5 minutes, 50 seconds, you'll hear the first one. If you then fast forward and go to 1 hour, 25 minutes, 22 seconds, you'll hear the second.
Chris and I are not 100% sure on what they say, and we would love to hear what you guys think.
Exactly. Please let us know. You can reach out to us at Dark Horse Paranormal or Bigfoot and a Bunny on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can even email us at dhparanormal@gmail.com or bigfootandabunny@gmail.com.
Please visit us at www.darkhorseparanormal.com or even bigfootandthebunny.com.
And definitely check out our live show. It's every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on www.uprntalkradio.com.
That's United Public Radio.
Stay tuned for our conclusion.
Stunning conclusion.
Of the D-Word Series 6.3.
Oh my goodness, that's 3 6s.
And we've got a twist for you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. Love you guys so much. Bye-bye.